Hi there. Thank you for joining us for our second coffee chat. It's Andrew here from Culloden Christian Assembly, and I'm going to be interviewing another member of the Assembly, and it's Helen this time. Helen is going to tell us about her interesting life. You might know Helen if you're from the Inverness area. She's known by so many and loved by so many. So stay around and grab yourself a coffee and let's listen in and think about life together. Thank you. Okay, Helen, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Andrew.
How are you today?
Oh, very well. It's a beautiful day.
What a lovely day. Yeah. Have you had blustery and snowy weather overnight?
Yes, between snowfall, it's rather nice.
Yeah, it's interesting how in Scotland you have a little bit of spring and you think you're getting towards summer, and then all of a sudden you get a snowstorm.
That's right. This is what they call the lambing snow.
Is that right?
We always get snow in April.
Oh, right. Oh, there you go.
They call it the lambing.
Yeah, I've noticed sometimes there's been a few late snows since I've been over, but I haven't maybe taken account of it. The lighter nights are in as well, which is nice, isn't it?
What a difference. It's great.
Yeah. What do you like most about the spring then, Helen?
Resurrection, everything fresh coming up. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe when you look out in the winter, isn't it, that by springtime everything just begins to come again.
Bloom. That's right. I've appreciated the seasons a lot more since I lived in the countryside. When I lived in the city, I never thought so much about it. I'm just so busy.
Yes, that's true.
I think living in the edge of the country makes you appreciate each season.
Yes. When you live in the city, you tend to look out on buildings all the time.
That's right.
I remember when we first came up here, I thought, I'm halfway up to the sky. I've never seen so much sky in my life before. And it's lovely to just look out. And in fact, I was trying to get it on this, but that was too complicated. But it's lovely to be able to see so much sky. And as you say, in the country, you see so much greenery.
It's lovely. I see you've got the daffodils out then.
That's right. Oh, it's always good to see.
Are they from the garden, Helen?
Some of them are, yes, but some of them just from the local shop.
Yeah, we're down in Croy. We've a lot of daffodils throughout the village. Actually, it's very nice. Nice. I have to tell the children to make sure they only pick one every time they go, because if you left them at it, there would be no daffodils for anyone else to enjoy.
I know.
But yeah. Anyway, so Helen, you've had an interesting life. Could you just sort of give us just a summary of who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Well, I'm Helen Monroe, and I was born in 1943, which makes me 77.
Yeah.
I was born in a little village called Lochgelly down in Fife.
Is that right? Okay.
So if you hear a Fife accent, you'll recognise it. They say it's a very sing-songy one. You kind of sing-song your words a bit. I remember in Cyprus, the ladies there used to say to me, "Sister, when you are talking, we think you are singing." So, of course, you don't hear your own accent, but that's what the Fife accent's supposed to be like, a wee bit of a sing-song. Anyway, yes, I was born in a small village in Fife, and grew up with a brother and 3 sisters. And I was the youngest in the family.
Like me?
Is that right? Oh, we must have things in common then, Andrew.
Probably.
I always blame that for my being disorganized. I always say, well, I was the last in the family. I just had to do what I was told, and my ideas didn't carry much weight. So that's my excuse.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's my reason too.
Yes. So that was it. So I grew up there and went to school when I was 4 in Lochgelly, and didn't bother too much about schooling, unfortunately. I think because I came late in life, my mother was 43, and they didn't bother too much about whether I did well at school or not. I didn't have any pressure at all, like what I hear other people have. And so I went through school very carelessly, actually, and left school with nothing.
Okay, yeah.
And
so were you immediately thinking of going into a more caring profession, Helen?
No, I was not. In fact, I had hardly any ambition at all, Andrew. I just thought, I'll just get a kind of a job, whatever it is. I didn't have any thoughts about anything, to tell you the truth, which is terrible to admit now. But That's how it was. It was very easy,
Yeah.
Ozzy,
Yeah.
carefree, careless too, living. And I was more interested in my friends than I was in studying and being educated.
Yeah.
So when I left school with nothing, then I really had to think seriously about being educated. That's when it really hit me, you know, that I needed education. So anyway, as I said to you the other night, every story you've got when you're my age is a long story.
Yeah.
So I'll need to watch what I say. So just feel free
We'll come
to
back to
cut in
some
and
of
say,
these things anyway. We'll come back to them anyway.
right. Anyway, you want to know about when I heard about the Bible and that? It's just that started early in life, and I think I grew up. I never ever remember hearing the gospel for the first time.
Okay.
Which I regret, because I think as an adult to hear that story for the first time must be absolutely wonderful.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I never remember hearing it. I just always grew up knowing God was there and heaven was there and hell was there and so on. All these things were just
a reality in your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And then I always thought, well, I'm not going to think seriously about these things, but maybe when I'm on my deathbed, I know that it doesn't take long to trust in the Lord. So maybe that's another thing that puzzled me, was going to meetings, because I went to meetings from an early stage. And this concept of opening your heart to the Lord, I could not get my head around that. I could not imagine what I had to do that, you know. And I remember even at an early age, which surprises me now to think that children could think like this, that I used to pray and ask God to just knock the door down, you know, that I didn't know how to open it, but could he just please bash his way in, as it were. Which was a funny thing to think as a child. But anyway, just before I was 10, I had an experience where I just yielded to the Lord. I don't remember saying anything or doing anything. I was just in my bedroom and kneeled down at my bed and yielded to the Lord. Don't know how I did it, but I think he must have done it. He must have just opened my heart. And I felt I was different after that, because I was always dead scared of thunder and lightning before that. I'm scared of death, which was not this thing.
It's okay.
Scared of death and all these things that scare you when you know that about the Bible, and you know you're not ready to meet God and all that. So then, yes, I knew a big change, because I was at peace and wasn't scared of things anymore, and I wasn't scared about the Lord coming back and all that. Anyway, to carry on, I grew up a bit, and I think about 14 or 15 or 16 or so, I decided I would just experiment a wee bit, going out and just doing what I wanted to do, and all the things that I wasn't encouraged to do when I was young, like going to the pictures. I spent hours and hours and hours in pictures. As soon as I got 9pence, I was away to the pictures. Of course, because I was the last in the family, I had more freedom. Nobody sort of noticed what I was doing. So that's what I used to do, away to the pictures. And then when I was older a wee bit, I did most of the things that young people do, you know, pictures, dancing, and socializing and that sort of thing. And then
what about your sort of, you were saying about your career? What really triggered that in your mind? What brought you towards doing what you did for much years?
Right. Well, I was working in a grocer's shop for a wee while.
Okay.
I had a good friend who was working in a baker's shop, and we used to meet at weekends, and she was a Christian girl, and we used to go to meetings and things. Anyway, we got talking one night and said, you know, we really should be thinking about doing something with our lives. And she said, how about thinking about nursing? And I said, oh, that would be lovely. I said, but I don't have any qualifications or anything, but yes, we'll go and we'll see what we can get out of the interview. So we went for an interview, and the old matron, I think she took a notion of us. We were so simple in our country life, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And she always kind of seemed fond of us, you know. So anyway, we went to this matron, and she said, I said I didn't have any qualifications or anything like that. Oh, that's all right. I'll just give you an entrance test. So she gave us an entrance test, which I thought I didn't do very well in. But when she saw the results, she said, I know. Oh, no, we went to be auxiliary nurses. That was it.
Okay.
And in fact, at that I often think of that. At that time, I didn't even know what the word auxiliary meant.
Mm-hmm.
But we went to be auxiliary nurses. That's exactly what we did. And that seemed exciting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is. I mean, it's a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just as exciting as any other job if that's what you have to do. So we went down with that in mind and asked Mrs. Leddingham, the matron, if we could apply to do auxiliary nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, oh, but you're young girls, you know, that's a dead end. At your age, you should maybe think about something else. Well, that just blew me away because I couldn't think of anything else. Anyway, she gave us this entrance test and she said, in a few months, you can start here as a student nurse.
Okay.
You can start as a pre-student to begin with, she said. Well, that just about blew my head off. A student nurse. That to me was an elevation that's, you know, way higher than I expected. Anyway, that's what we did. And we became pre-student nurses and then student nurses. And lo and behold, I found it all very easy, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
The studying, because I was so interested in it, I just soaked it all up. Never took notes because I never could take notes. I could never read my writing. But I was fascinated and interested. And it was a new life. It was a new world.
Yeah.
And we had lovely uniforms, you know, so you felt really good. And it was just a new world and a new life. And so got into nursing, thoroughly enjoyed, especially the studying bit.
Okay.
I'm more of a theorist than a practical person. And nursing is quite hard work. You know, it's hard work.
Yeah, I would imagine. And
I don't think, well, I don't think I'm really built for hard work, although I had to do it. Everybody had to do it.
Yeah.
But enjoyed it, you know, and it was just a great world to be in. And I learned an awful lot about ordinary life. I mean, it wasn't just nursing. I was catapulted into a world that I had never experienced before. Even the only thing I enjoyed at school, I should have said, was English.
Okay. Yeah.
That was really the only thing that grabbed my attention. But when I started nursing, I was in such a new world, coming from a very working class, poor family, you know, poor family. I heard words that I didn't know what they meant. So what I did, I had to get the bus to the hospital, half an hour's journey in the bus every day, every night. That was for 6 years. I used to take my wee English dictionary, and I had a magazine, so I hid it, you see. And I put the English dictionary inside my magazine, and I learned English words. That was my main thing when I started nursing, because not only were there nursing words to remember, to learn, there were millions of English words I'd never heard before. It's a strange thing. Anyway, that's what I did. I had my dictionary inside my women's magazine, or whatever magazine it was, and I used to pick up with English words, any words that I'd heard. Things like colloquial words like grapevine and things that people use. I'd never heard them before. I didn't know what they meant.
No, it's amazing how many words you pick up just through being in conversation with folks.
Absolutely.
And different people from different backgrounds and all this. Right. I mean, I found the same when I went to university, and some of the lecturers just almost spoke double Dutch to me, you know.
Well, that's the other thing. Yes, when you start a job, it's a new language you learn as well. The job, you know.
Yeah.
And then the environment you're in is a new situation. Anyway, that's what we did, and we did our nurse training, and then I staffed for 3 years. Isabel, my friend, she went on and did. I wanted to be with my mother because all the family had got married and they were away. So I just thought I'd be with my mother.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my mother. My father died just before this, when I was about 16. And my mother was there, and we all got on very well together. So I went back to live with my mother, and then in these days, you weren't a proper nurse unless you were a midwife, you see.
Okay, right. I had extra training that you would do for that.
That was the thing. You weren't a proper nurse unless you were a midwife as well. So although I had finished my training, and I had done 3 years as a staff nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I then thought, maybe I'll go and do midwifery,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like studying and learning a bit more.
Yeah.
So then I went to a place nearby where my mother was and did midwifery in Dunfermline in Fife. And so I was still in Fife.
So what would you have found the most difficult thing about your nursing or your midwifery, for that matter? I mean, just at a personal level. I mean, experience-wise, was it facing?
Well, I had never seen anybody dead before.
Okay, yeah.
Of course, that's a big thing in your life. You don't forget that.
No.
It's like the first time you see a delivery of a baby.
Yes, it's highlight almost. Yeah, you're right.
And nowadays, people see all these things on YouTube.
For myself, I remember when I was 7, my grandfather passed away, and I went to see his body, and I mean, it kind of leaves a mark on you that you never really forget, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the reality of death all of a sudden hits home, maybe in a way that it hadn't done before. That we're not here to stay, and
that's right,
and that this is this life will run its course, and so on. It just all of a sudden comes home to you, doesn't it?
Yes, mind you, I had faced the reality of death when I was young too, because one of my school friends died. So all these things impacted. I knew that life was serious and everybody would die and all that. So that made me think seriously about these things,
definitely.
Which I always did. Every few months, you changed and you went into a different field.
Okay, right, yeah.
And then you went into what they call PTS, preliminary training school. You went in there for a month to learn the theory. Now, I loved that. But every Saturday morning, you went to the wards.
Okay, yeah.
And it was a different ward, different staff, different patients, different things.
Yeah.
I found that a bit of a strain. In fact, some others did too. I remember one friend, and every Saturday morning she was leaving. She said, "I've had it. I'm going. I'm not staying." But she, like me, liked the theory,
Yeah.
And we had to coax her. We used to say, "Oh, please stay. Just stick it out." And she did, and she finished her training. So each time, every 3 months, she had to go into a different practical situation, which many people who are practically minded, that's their highlight. They love that.
Yeah, yeah.
But my highlight was going and learning about things, and then going into the practical bit was a wee bit of a strain, although I loved it, and I loved looking after people, and I felt very good at my job.
Yeah.
Nursing is a job where you get immediate feedback,
I can imagine, yeah.
And if you do,
you'll know if you're not good at it.
if you do a fairly good job, you get lots and lots of reward.
Yeah.
Teaching and that's a different thing altogether. But anyway, so I thoroughly enjoyed that, of course.
No, that's lovely. Yeah. So, yeah, well, you're obviously up here in the north now. What's your connection with the north? Did it come shortly thereafter, or?
Well, my mother, I expected to stay with her for the rest of my life. I never had any fancy ideas about doing anything.
Yeah.
And my mother said to me one day, "Why don't you go away and do something?" She said, "Don't stay at home for me. I'm all right." Mind you, she was in her 70s at that time, so it was very unselfish of her.
Yes.
But it's always a good story I like to tell about my mother, because she was amply rewarded for that attitude and selflessness. She said to me one day, "Away you go and get on with your life. Do something. Leave me. I'm all right." And I said, "Are you sure?" Because everybody else was married in a way. And "Yes, do," she said. So I was interested in, again, studying something different. So I was interested in homeopathy at that. That's another big story which we won't go into it. So I wrote to London. I thought, well, I'll go to the big city, I've come from the And I wrote and asked if there were any courses for nurses. And I got a letter back saying, "No, sorry, we don't have any courses for nurses." So then I wrote to Glasgow Hospital, Glasgow Homeopathic Hospital. Glasgow was a big city as well to me, coming from a little village.
Absolutely.
So I wrote there, and lo and behold, I got a letter back saying, "We have no courses, but if you come and work in the hospital, you'll learn as much as any course can ever teach you."
Okay. Yes.
So they offered me a staff nurse's job, and I said, "Well, I've been staffing for a few years, and also I'm not quite finished my midwifery yet." The matron said, "Come away, we'll give you a sister's job." And she said, never mind about you'll get through that all right, I'll help you with that. So off I went to Glasgow, and that was a big step, you know.
I can imagine, yes.
At that time.
What age would you have been by then, Helen?
Early 20s, I would say.
Okay, yeah. It's not an easy transition, I wouldn't think.
Well, because I had such a village, simple, sheltered life. I mean, really and truly, I remember my landlady shouting at me saying, "Don't you know how to wash woolens?" I was washing my jerseys in the sink with hot water, and I was a ward sister at the time, and she gave me a terrible row. But you see, at home, my mother did all the work. We didn't have to do anything. So anyway, I ended in Glasgow working there, and that opened up another completely new world.
Oh yeah,
too big a story to see. Yeah. But one funny thing about it is, which my city friends always laugh about, is that when I went to Glasgow, when you're in the village, you see, if you want a newspaper or you want stamps, you just go down into the town centre and get them. So I jumped on a bus and went into the centre of Glasgow to look for a post office and a paper shop. Of course, I landed in George Square and I just saw all these statues and great buildings, and I thought, this is a funny place. So I went back without my paper and without my stamps and so on. But anyway, so I stayed in Glasgow at the hospital, thoroughly enjoyed that for a few years, and then wanted to do something else. So I did health visiting in Glasgow, studied to do health visiting in Glasgow. And I met my friend Margaret in Glasgow. That opened up another new world to me. We have lifetime companions.
Lifetime friends, yeah.
And she was a city, I always say she's a city slicker. I'm a country person. But she knew her way around Glasgow, and she had a car and going through the tunnel in Glasgow. All that was just like a different world to me. It was a very different world. Anyway, from there we came up to Inverness. Again, that's a long story, but I won't go into that. But we came up into Inverness, and somebody came to visit us in Glasgow and say, with a picture of a house. Now, in these days, girls did not buy houses, you know. Certainly not girls like me. You know? And we were sharing a flat in Glasgow. That's another big story, but I won't go into that. But this house, this friend said, "Here's a house." Well, that was a big deal, because who said we were to come up and live here in Inverness, you know, and buy a house and all that? These were big things, you know, but it was all made very, very clear and simple. And the way just opened up so clearly. In fact, the people selling the house, they came to meet us. We didn't even have to go to meet them. And it was all very unusual the way it happened. Yeah. And we ended up buying this little house. And so then, of course, I was still in Glasgow because I had to do a contract year in my health visiting. So Margaret was here, I was in Glasgow. And so the other big thing was, am I supposed to go up to Inverness, and how do I know if that's what I'm to do, and all the rest of it. But when the house came, and obviously did 2 salaries to buy the house, you know, we didn't have any money. And I think that the money we had between us was £90 or something. And so here we were buying this house, and
is that the house you're in now still?
The house we're in now.
Oh, yes. Right, I didn't know that.
And so obviously we needed 2 salaries to pay this house, because we didn't have any money, you know. And I said to the sisters, well, we need to get 100% mortgage. I hardly knew what mortgage meant at that time. And they said, the person selling the house said, "Here's the keys, you can move in any time." Wow. The way just opened up so clearly and plainly, and we were so thankful, because we didn't have anything much to do about it. It just seemed to land on our plate, and it was obvious that was what we had to do. So that was us here, and then the next step was going to Canada.
Oh yes, you went across to Canada for a number of years, didn't you?
I went over there for 4 years, and I won't go into all the story about that, but we had a lovely time in Canada.
So what was the big difference between the UK and Canada then?
Oh, huge differences. people's attitudes, for one thing,
Is
just
that
hit
right?
me like a brick. Everybody seems so positive over there.
Is that right? Yeah.
We at least maybe not so much now, but there's a sort of negativity about
Yeah,
our culture, you
cynicism,
know.
maybe after the war and so on.
That's true, yes. I mean, I remember my mother saying to me, "Oh, you'll never be a nurse." Now, she didn't mean any harm by it. She was a loving mother.
Yeah, I know
Lovely
what you mean. Yeah.
Didn't finish the story of her unselfishness, saying, "Go away and get on with your life." Well, I went away and got on with my life, and even went to Canada. And I thought, "Oh, I'll never see mother again." Do you know that I was in Canada for 4 years and I was back for 20 years and mother was still there? And she had the great privilege of having me going down to live with her before she died, and she was able to die in her own house. So I think that's a lovely story, because she was so unselfish.
Yeah.
And yet for her dying years, she had the very best of care she could have had, because my sisters were there, my brother was there, and we were all round her. Yes. And I always loved to think of that, because I thought she was so unselfish, and so at the end she got the very best that anybody could have had. In her own bed, in her own house. She was born in Main Street, Lochgelly. She died in Main Street, Lochgelly at the age of 96.
Wow.
Not the same house, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that's a lovely story.
I think that principle of unselfishness is so beautiful, and isn't it? I mean, just it's obviously an expression of love. It's seen ultimately with God. God loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. And you know that the principle of sacrifice leading to blessing.
Wonderful. Well, that came over to us as children, my mother's selflessness, and never what she wanted. It was always what we needed, you know.
Yeah, it's lovely to have that memory of her too, isn't it?
A lovely memory, very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, so you came to Canada there.
Zooming to Canada again. It was another.
You were saying the attitudes were different. That was a younger country, I suppose, and there was probably a vibrancy, you would say.
And everybody felt so sure of themselves, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, it was just so different. In fact, one of the things in health visiting, you did schoolwork, you did clinics, you did home visiting.
Mm-hmm.
And when you went into schools, even the children, you know, you would say maybe there was a mother, you'd ask about the child's immunizations. In this country, the child would look at the mother, you see, to answer. Over there, oh, I had this shot and such a date, and I had this one and this. You know, it just left you thinking, these are children.
Wow. So a whole big cultural shock then.
Very, and also I remember we went to Yorkton, Saskatchewan, which was flat as a pancake. You can hardly imagine it coming from Scotland, you know. And so after a while, we thought, we must go and see a mountain somewhere. We've got to see a hill. I haven't seen a hill for ages. So we went to Calgary, which is the foothills of the Rockies.
Yeah.
And I remember that day, of course, we were praying about it, wondering if the Lord would lead us in that way. And the day we were going, the planes were on strike. So we thought, oh, well, that's it. Anyway, we thought, well, we'll get a bus. You can go by bus anywhere in Canada and the States. You can spend a week on a bus, day and night. Anyway, I remember this particular time there was a bus and it looked full. So we said to the driver, well, we hope to go to Calgary, but the bus is full. He said, Madam, if you were the only one person going to Calgary, we would have a bus put on for you. You know, that kind of attitude just permeated the whole of society.
Wow.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
And then working with people who were so confident about everything they were doing. Yes, they were good at this. Oh, yes, I've always been good at that. And yes, I'm good at it. That was their attitude.
Yeah, can-do attitude, really.
Of course, the reality was sometimes they weren't just as good as they thought, you know. But
realism hit in.
Anyway, it was all a very
new experience. It was so big, wasn't it? And it is so big.
Vast country, yes. And they were all busy people. They kept going the whole time. That was one thing we missed about our own country. People didn't know how to relax, you know. They were going the whole time. In fact, one time, again, there's lots of stories about that. One time we were going away for the weekend And these girls were driving us, and they said, "Oh, it's 14 hours." I said, 14 hours? I said, what about eating? "Oh, that's okay, we eat on the way." Fine, great. So after about 6 hours, I said, "When do we stop to eat?" They said, "Oh, we don't stop to eat, we just eat on the way." So they were, wow. In fact, they were eating and drinking while they're driving. It was so different. I mean, we're talking about 40 years ago, mind you. It's probably a wee bit different now, but
yeah, but it just shows you how different countries can be so different that way.
Very different. Yeah. But I loved Canada, and I loved meeting people there. And
met a lot of Christians in Canada too. Yeah,
a lot of lovely Christians we met, and outreach work and meeting people. It was lovely. Great privilege when you're working with people throughout life. You meet so many different types of people, and so
different backgrounds.
As you know, Andrew.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
A great privilege.
So then you came back to, you came back to Inverness, I'm right? Is that right?
Came back to the very same house.
Yeah. So had you sold the house, or just
we rented the house for when we were away. And Margaret was homesick because she's a bit older than I am, and she was a bit homesick, so she never intended to stay in Canada. But by the time I'd been in Canada 2 or 3 years, I was happy to stay there. Okay. So I said, "I'm quite happy to stay here." Margaret was keen to get home, so I said, "Well, I'll come home with you, but I'll probably come back again later." That was my intention. But by this time, my mother was getting older. She was in her 80s by this time, and she came out to Canada. In fact, she came out in a jumbo jet to Canada and stayed with us. She loved it. And then the next day she said, "Now that I've seen you, I think I'll just go home." I said, "No, Mother, you're here for a month." But my mother came over. The first time she'd been on an escalator. My sister had a terrible time getting her out of the country. But I don't think she'd been out of Fife before. But then she gets on a jumbo jet and comes to Calgary, Alberta. Anyway, then we came home and went into teaching after that.
Okay.
Because you've got to move on, you know what I mean? I didn't want to go back to health visiting. So we both went into teaching. Margaret taught in another college, and I did nursing teaching in Inverness.
Did you enjoy that as well?
We had to do our teaching courses, of course. So we were away at different times doing teaching courses.
Aye.
And in fact, in Canada, we had to do all our exams over again. We had to do all our things over again.
Wow.
But it was multiple choice, so that wasn't too bad. But
yeah, I don't mind multiple choice myself. We'd plenty of that.
I think you could work out that quite good. So anyway, but we had to do that. We had to do driving tests again, and drive on the other side of the road. That takes a bit of getting used to. But,
so did you enjoy the teaching then, Helen?
Yes, but not so much as bedside nursing or health visiting.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I found teaching a wee bit of a strain because I think because of my own background, you know, my basic education was so poor.
Right. Yeah, you felt that you were having
it's something that's kind of haunted me for the rest of my life, sort of thing. You know, I don't mind now because I've managed to catch up a bit and got a degree in that. But nevertheless, when you move into another world teaching, you find most people have a better education than you know. Yeah. And in fact, probably the students have better education. I mean, they had to have I can't remember now. They had to have hires and everything to get into nurse training. They were better qualified than I had been when I started my career, you know. Yeah. So all that was, if I went back now, it'd be quite different, you know. But
aye.
At the time, it was a wee bit of a strain, I must say.
Yeah. No, anyway. And I can understand that, and there's a sense in which, you know, you're in the spotlight very much with teaching. You know,
that's right.
Everybody's coming asking you the questions. It's yeah.
And then again, I got more education, so that was I got a chance to get a degree and all that. And that's another thing, another good principle, you know. But I often tell my young friends, when I was left school and had to get an education, I kept looking at the papers to do hires and O levels and things. Yeah. And just about every time I looked, the class was on when it was a meeting night, a Bible reading night or something like that. Yeah. So, well, I couldn't do it. I thought, well, my priorities are different, and so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, Andrew, I got my degree and I didn't have to pay a halfpenny for it. And I even got time off work to do it. So you see how things happen if you get your priorities right when you're young.
Yeah. So you've plenty of ongoing interests then, Helen. Yeah.
Well, life is always busy, Andrew, even with this lockdown.
I can tell that.
You know,
I was just thinking of some of the different things you get involved in, even with us. And yeah, you love getting down the town and speaking to folks about the Lord Jesus.
Well, I love doing that. And I went downtown on Saturday. It was great. It was a beautiful, beautiful day.
Good.
And,
yeah, very good. Very good.
People are happy to. People are lonely and they're quite happy to speak. And
yeah,
a great privilege.
There's a lot of need about, isn't there? The biggest need is the Lord.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's amazing how people are thinking these days, you know, with the pandemic and all that, you know.
Yeah, I've been encouraged by a number of conversations I've had. Yeah. So looking back over the years, Helen, if you were to have 2 or 3 younger people around, and they were talking about lessons for life, what would you say to them?
I would say, well, the most important thing is having the Lord in your life.
Yeah.
He is being a Christian is being, as you know, Christ, one belonging to Christ. Many people say they're Christians, but it just means that they believe in God, you know.
Aye, yeah.
The true meaning of Christians is that you're one of Christ, which is an amazing, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And that comes, as you know, by repenting and placing our faith in him. But that's just the start, Andrew. You know, what you do when you come to the Lord is just the very start. And it doesn't bear too much, but bears a lot of weight for eternity. But as far as going through life is concerned, you have to follow on, and you're always learning, and you're at different stages of life, and you learn different things. So I would say, make the Lord of your life, no matter, sometimes we don't understand what he's doing. Sometimes lots of things happen that make us annoyed and angry or whatever. But the longer you go on and the longer you trust him and the better you get to know the Lord, then you realize that that's the all-important thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and then when he is Lord of your life, he leads you and he guides you. And it doesn't matter if you understand it or if anybody else understands it. You have a deep peace in your heart, knowing that he's there and he's always available, and so on. That's lovely. Any other particular interests that you have, Helen, that you want to tell us about? And I would say too. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I would tell these young people to get down to reading scriptures, you know, because if you don't do it when you're young, Andrew, you really miss out the best years of your life, you know. And in fact, my learning to read, and I remember this clearly, this is before I went to school. We didn't have all the lovely books that young people have nowadays, you know. Yeah. And we had a, in fact, I've got one in the bookshelf there, a redemption songbook. And each hymn had big letter. The title was in big letters at the top of each hymn. And I can remember like yesterday sitting. I was so delighted to read the names of these hymns, and what a thrill that gave me as a youngster. So that was how I learned to read, by reading the hymn book, and then starting to read the scriptures, and there's no substitute for it. You can't do a crash course in scripture reading, or Christian life. It's just slowly and surely keep consistent, be consistent, and put first things first. That's what I would say to you. Yeah. I remember hearing a quotation that the main thing is to make the main thing the main thing. That's right. And I think in Christian life, there's a real sense in which just having that focus on the Lord is so important. That's right. These are good sayings. These are good sayings that you pick up from older people, aren't they? That's it. Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, any other interests you want to tell us about then, Helen, that you're involved in? Or well, I like reading, and I do a bit of writing, and
That's right. You do poetry too, don't you?
Yes, I do a bit of that.
Yeah, very nice.
And with this lockdown, because of the older people who aren't on email, I've taken to writing to them once a month and enclosing a little bit.
Oh, that's nice. Yes.
So it's quite nice. The ones who are on email are easily dealt with, you know, because you just press a button and 100 people get you.
That's right.
But yes, I do that. And the gardening, of course, now Margaret's older and she's not able to do what she did when she was young. She was a great gardener, but now she isn't able to do that. So I'm very happy to be, again, as you get older, your role changes, and I'm the managing director of the house and the
garden.
I keep saying to her, I think I should get an increase in salary now that I've taken on board all. But anyway, but the great thing is just to be content and to be settled and happy with where you are, doing what you're supposed to be doing, whether it's washing dishes or whether it's going to the moon.
Yeah.
The true satisfaction comes in just doing what you're supposed to be doing day by day.
Yeah, godliness with contentment is great gain.
Great gain.
Yeah, there's a
mind you, we're not always. I'm saying this as if that's easy. It isn't, you know. But I mean, we're all, although we're saved and going to heaven, we have our old nature that makes mistakes and stuff.
Absolutely.
But anyway. But I'm very happy in my life as it is right now, and very happy to be here for Margaret. I said I'm glad there's some years apart, because we're not old. We're both old, but we're not at the same age at the same time. Here's this low battery.
Yeah, I've lost your picture, Helen. You're back again.
So there we are. Margaret's 88. I'm 77, and she's a great storyteller. She could tell you millions of stories.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, before your battery goes, Helen, we'll maybe draw to a close there. It was lovely to hear from you.
Andrew, thank you for that.
Yeah. Any final words or anything?
Final words? Well, praise the Lord, I would say, as the final words.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has kept us and led us and guided us, and still doing that. You know, even in old age, you still have, it's just a different scenario. You know, you think when you're young, when I'm old, I won't have any troubles, and in fact, you don't think you ever grow old when you're young. But you do get older, and you grow old, and you find different things happen, different testing things, and different pleasures too, you know. And
sure.
So there we are.
Well, that's lovely, Helen. It's lovely to speak to you.
It's been lovely speaking with you, Andrew.
You take care.
It's been lovely. Thank you very much.
Take care now, Helen. See you.
Bye-bye.